my next question would be to Manish sir. Sir, apart from the things you mentioned before, were there any other obstacles you faced while protecting your work?
बहुत बार ऐसा होता है, मेरे एक दोस्त के साथ एक इशू हुआ कि लाइक ही बॉट वन तमिल फिल्म्स राइट, ओके, and Gujarati rights, and he came to Ahmedabad. He is from Bangalore, so he came to Ahmedabad and he met a lot of people. Ki, I have right of this film, so let's make this film in Gujarati. So somebody told him कि अरे this film, ये film तो पहले से ही कोई बना चुका है. तो अभी nobody knows कि वो फिल्म कैसे बन गई, कैसे, तो किसी ने फिल्म देखी और ये कर दिया. तो सबसे बड़ी बात ये भी होती है कि आपने जब फिल्म बना ली और फिल्म बनाने के बाद रिलीज हो गई, तो एक आपने उसको एक तरीके से एज अ प्रोड्यूसर, आई एम टॉकिंग एज अ डायरेक्टर प्रोड्यूसर, तो एक तरीके से आपने फिल्म बना ली और आपको लगा कि चलो ये राइट उसका एक्सप्लोर हो गया. उसके बाद भी बहुत सारी चीजें होती है, बिकॉज आईपी इज इंटेलेक्चुअल प्रॉपर्टी एंड इट्स फॉरएवर अंटिल अनलेस आपने किसी को दिया नहीं. तो उसके बाद लाइक इंडिया में जितनी लैंग्वेजेस हैं, इंडिया से बाहर जितनी लैंग्वेज, अभी एक तमिल फिल्म का कल ही मैं पढ़ रहा था, उसका अनऑफिशियल पाकिस्तानी रीमेक बना. तो ऐसा भी होता है. तो हाउ विल यू प्रोटेक्ट दैट? उन चीजों को आप कैसे प्रोटेक्ट करोगे, उन चीजों के अगेंस्ट आप कैसे करोगे? क्योंकि वो ही है कि आपकी लाइक आपका एक लैंड है और उस पर आके किसी ने कब्जा कर लिया, लोग आके रहने लगे. तो स्टोरी भी ऐसी है कि आपकी फिल्म किसी ने देखी तो उसको लगा यार ये फिल्म बहुत अच्छी लगी मेरे को, और इसमें इसको थोड़ा सा ऐसे चेंज करके इसको अगर पंजाबी में बना दे, या इसको मराठी में बना दे, या इसको कन्नड़ा में बना दे, तो ये हो जाएगा. तो हाउ विल यू प्रोटेक्ट दैट? बिकॉज क्योंकि वहां पे आप क्या लॉ लगाएंगे, क्योंकि उसने तो काफी चीजें चेंज भी कर दी. और मेरे को जैसे आपकी स्टोरी को कितना मॉडिफाई कर दिया जाए, बिकॉज दिस इज वेरी कॉमन नाउ. लाइक आपने कितने टीवी सीरियल्स देखे होंगे कि एक फिल्म बनी, उस फिल्म पे बेस, उसकी स्टोरी को बेस करके लोगों को पता चला कि अरे बधाई इज वेरी फेमस, तो बधाई को ये करके कि ठीक है अभी सास इज प्रेग्नेंट. आई एम नॉट क्लेमिंग एनी दिस थिंग, पर हाँ अगर ऐसा कुछ हो कि थोड़ा सा मैं सिनेरियो चेंज कर दूं, तो पीपल विल से नहीं दिस इज इंस्पायर्ड फ्रॉम दैट स्टोरी. बट एक्चुअली आपका इंस्पिरेशन कैसा है, मतलब वो तो ऑलमोस्ट आपने डायरेक्ट आइडिया ले ही लिया. या अनऑथराइज रीमेक जो होते हैं, तो इफ योर फिल्म इज योर आईपी, तो दिस इज अनदर बिग चैलेंज कि कैसे एक फिल्म बनने के बाद भी इसका, क्योंकि अभी इफ यू आर गोइंग टू बाय रीमेक राइट्स, तो रीमेक राइट्स के रेट्स भी बहुत हाई है. इट्स लाइक अनदर रिकवरी फॉर लाइक किसी फिल्म, रीजनल फिल्म के रीमेक राइट्स और उसके सैटेलाइट राइट का वैल्यू ऑलमोस्ट इक्वल होता है. तो इट्स इम्पोर्टेंट फॉर यू कि अगर आपने अच्छी फिल्म बनाई है तो आप उसको अच्छे से एक्सप्लॉइट करें, अच्छे से उसका पूरा रेवेन्यूज निकाले. लेकिन अगर अनऑफिशियली कोई उसको बना देता है और फिर आपके स्कोप ही खत्म हो जाते उधर से, तो देन व्हाट विल यू डू? तो दिस इज अनदर बिग चैलेंज. तो वन मोर थिंग, जैसे अभी संजीत ने भी बोला कि दिस इज वेरी कॉमन फॉर्मेट कि आप किसी स्टूडियो में स्क्रिप्ट भेजते हैं, तो वो आपसे जो क्लॉज साइन कराते हैं, जो पेपर साइन कराते हैं, उसमें ये बोलते हैं कि ठीक है आप हमको भेज रहे हैं अपनी स्क्रिप्ट, लेकिन अगर ऑलरेडी हमारे पास कोई आप हम ये श्योर नहीं करते, क्योंकि ऑलरेडी आपने जो भेजा, क्या पता हमारे पास ऑलरेडी ऐसा कुछ हो, तो फ्यूचर में यू कांट क्लेम कि अरे उस स्टूडियो ने मेरा स्क्रिप्ट चुराया है. तो दिस इज वेरी डाइसी सिचुएशन. like they might have something similar, but what if इसका 25% लेके उसका 25% लेके they make something new, और तो it means तो ठीक है. और ये होता है कि like आपका हर फिल्म का एक नॉवेल्टी फैक्टर रहता है कि like your film is about a bald guy, और your film is about a gay relationship, या योर फिल्म इज अबाउट कुछ भी एक नॉवेल्टी फैक्टर रहेगा. और आपका अगर वो नॉवेल्टी फैक्टर ही निकाल के कोई उस पर कुछ फिल्म बना दे, देन व्हाट विल यू डू? देन आपका स्कोप खत्म हो जाता है फिल्म बनाने का. देन एज अ राइटर आई विल थिंक कि नहीं यार ये तो बन गया, अब मैं क्या करूं? एंड आई इफ आई गो टू एनी प्रोड्यूसर से नहीं नहीं ऐसा तो आया था, ऐसी 2 फिल्में. दिस इज एग्जैक्ट लैंग्वेज. जैसे वो बात करेंगे कि हाँ नहीं ऐसा आ चुका है ना, ऐसी तो फिल्म आई थी, तो हु विल से? तो अब कोई देखेगा ही नहीं, बिकॉज इसका कोई नॉवेल्टी फैक्टर ही नहीं है। उस चीज को आप कैसे प्रोटेक्ट करोगे? तो दीज टू आर अनदर चैलेंजेस।
Yes, sir. So there are really many challenges that one has to overcome. So I would like to ask the same thing to Sanjeeth sir, that what are the challenges do IP lawyers face when they deal with such cases of the entertainment industry, and what are the parameters they analyze, like taking up before taking up a case?
So when you say case, what comes to my mind is disputes, right? Usually, so I'm not looking at it from the dispute perspective, right? So working with now Manish will not come to me only for a dispute, right? Manish will come and I'll work with Manish on ensuring that whatever Manish has created, that he has rights to it and that he's getting the optimal benefits from it, right? In terms of that story he's written and the opportunity to have that story be made into a film or something else. So the things to keep in mind, right? We've gone into negotiations also. I'll give you one example. We won't name obviously the people we've negotiated with and stuff. So I had an opportunity to sit in with Manish on a negotiation, where a producer wanted to make a film based on Manish's story, a very good story. However, as Manish started discussing with them over time, his vision for the film, how this was going to get made, there was a lot of interference, right? There was a lot of inputs from their side, which really was taking away from what Manish's story was, right? And the vision of how Manish was also a director, the vision that Manish was seeing for the film was constantly being changed, right? It evolved into something else. So as Manish pointed out earlier, by having exposed them to his film, them saying, okay, we also have this concept, maybe without Manish's permission, they'll take 25% of what Manish had to give, right, and use it in the story for their benefit, right? So these are the things that we are trying to look out for, right? So it isn't just a story, but there's also vision, right? There's also vision that a writer has, right? A director has. We're trying to protect these also. So one of the things, like for example, we were pushing for in the negotiations was creative freedom, right? Creative freedom in terms of the decision-making ability that the writer, director has in presenting that story the way they want it, right? Without you can give inputs, you as a producer or you as a creative producer or from the finance teams that are involved in such things, you can give inputs, but ultimately you have to leave it to me to take the decision in terms of how this film is going to be coming out. So these are all additional elements that we look at, right? It isn't just a story, going and pitching the story and saying, okay, we're going to work with the producers. There's a lot of complexities, including these things, right? We've seen challenges where the writer, who also might be a director, right? If they're not a director, writer is retained on a consultant basis for the film, right? They'll be giving advice. They'll help write the script. They'll help write the dialogue, and such things. They might be retained. And when you're retained and you're giving these kind of inputs, there'll be challenges where you might not agree. Okay, the producer wants to use a big, well-known actor and actress for the film, and your vision is something different, right? This is a story about real India, and you can't see the biggest actor playing the real India story, right? So you have challenges with that. So creative freedom is one aspect. The other aspects that we also try to address is credit, right? So as part of the law obviously says it, right? These are called moral rights, right? You have moral rights of having your name associated with whatever you write, right? Whatever that work is that's going to get put into a film or a song or whatever it is, your name needs to be associated with it, has to come out, right? So where do the credits come in? How much credit do I get? Do I get the first slate of credit, or do I get the last slate of credit where I'm in very small font, nobody can see who I am, right? All such things are also.
क्या आप उसके बाद मुझे देने वाले, तो अभी मत दीजिए, देखो तब दीजिए, और वो चीजें हम क्लियर करें. तो लाइक दिस ये एग्रीमेंट्स, ये सब चीजें आई थिंक इनको लाइटली नहीं लेना चाहिए, और इनको बहुत, दिस इज पार्ट ऑफ प्रोसेस. और सबसे पहले ये होता है कि हम आईपी लाइक म्यूजिक का भी हमने डिस्कस नहीं किया क्योंकि इतना टाइम नहीं है हमारे पास, लेकिन म्यूजिक भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है। तो हर तरीके से तो हम इस प्रोसेस को यूज टू हो जाए, तो सबसे पहली चीज तो यही है कि हम ये ना समझे कि नहीं वी आर बंच ऑफ क्रिएटिव पीपल, लेट्स मेक फिल्म, और फिल्म बनने के बाद भी डोंट नो। और ऐसे ही इंडिया में लाइक हर साल ज्यादा नहीं तो मेरे को लगता है 100 से ऊपर ऐसे प्रोजेक्ट्स, 100 तो मैंने बहुत कम बोल दिया, 200 300 400 प्रोडक्ट भी ऐसे हो सकते हैं जो बनते हैं और उनका कुछ नहीं होता है, वो कहीं नहीं जाते हैं। तो इन सब के एक रीजन ये भी होता है कि ठीक है कि हमको पहली चीज ये कि हमको पता नहीं चीजों को कैसे डालना है, दूसरी चीजें डिस्प्यूट में पड़ जाती है, किसी चीजों को प्रोड्यूसर ने लटका दिया है कहीं पे, या किसी किसी एक्टर ने इशू कर दिए फिल्म में। तो आई थिंक अगर ये चीजें कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स के, आईपी लॉज के, इन सब चीजों को लेके आप इसका अंडरस्टैंडिंग अच्छे से रखें शुरुआत से, जिस दिन से आपने पहला पेज लिखा, बिकॉज उसका प्रोसेस भी पैरेलली उस दिन से शुरू होता है, और फिल्म रिलीज होने पे उसका प्रोसेस उसके बाद भी हो जाएगा कि आपने राइट्स किस किस को दिए, कितने साल के लिए आपने राइट्स दिए उनको, सैटेलाइट राइट्स किसके पास है, आपके ओटीटी राइट्स किसके पास है, आपके रीमेक राइट्स किसके पास है, किस लैंग्वेज के रीमेक राइट्स किसके पास है। तो इवन रीमेक राइट्स में भी आर दे अलाउड टू डू हिंदी डबिंग और नॉट, अदर लैंग्वेज डबिंग और नॉट। तो ये बहुत सारी चीजें, इट्स अ बिग ट्री है। तो आई थिंक इस चीज सब चीजों को समझना फिल्म मेकर्स के लिए तो बहुत जरूरी है, और सबको समझना चाहिए।
Okay, sir, thank you. And also, apart from this, is there any quick advice you would like to give to all the aspiring filmmakers and writers, directors?
हाँ, एडवाइस तो यही है, बनाते रहो फिल्में और अच्छा प्रोसेस फॉलो करो, बिकॉज योर एनर्जी इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट एंड पॉजिटिव एनर्जी इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट। बिकॉज अगर आपने स्क्रिप्ट, अभी मैं इसी को आईपी के और लॉ के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में ही बोलता हूँ क्योंकि हम सब भी रिलेट कर सकेंगे उससे। तो energy is very important, and like if I'm writing something comic या some positive story, light hearted film या कुछ भी whatever genre, तो मैंने जो लिखा है और लिखने के बाद आई एम अश्योर कि सबसे पहले आपको पता है कि दिस इज अ गुड स्क्रिप्ट और अ गुड स्टोरी, क्योंकि प्रोड्यूसर का कैलकुलेशन होता है और डायरेक्टर कैन अंडरस्टैंड इट, और मे बी सम टाइम एक्टर आल्सो, बिकॉज एक्टर्स का पर्सपेक्टिव अलग होता है, वो अपने पर्सपेक्टिव से देखेंगे कि नहीं मैं कहाँ पे उसमें, विच इज माय कैरेक्टर। तो हिज पर्सपेक्टिव उस स्क्रिप्ट को देखने का उसके हिसाब से होगा। तो सबसे पहले आप पॉजिटिव रहे, फिल्में बनाएं, और इस प्रोसेस को लेके थोड़ा प्रोटेक्टिव रहे, क्योंकि अगर इस लूप में आप गए और आपकी अच्छी स्क्रिप्ट अटकती है तो वो स्क्रिप्ट को हार्म नहीं करेगा, फ्यूचर के लिए भी आपको हार्म करेगा, क्योंकि आप अगली फिल्म जब लिखने जाएंगे तो आपके दिमाग में ये नहीं आना चाहिए कि यार उस स्क्रिप्ट के साथ जो हुआ इस स्क्रिप्ट के साथ वैसा ना हो। तो बहुत सारे लोगों का करियर ही इस बात पे खत्म हो जाता है। तो आई थिंक दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट, बिकॉज लाइक जब भी आप बड़े स्टूडियो, बड़े प्रोडक्शन हाउस को अप्रोच करते हैं तो उनका पहला चीज होता है, मेरे को कोई बड़ा स्टूडियो कोई स्क्रिप्ट भेजता है कि आर यू इंटरेस्टेड इन राइटिंग डायलॉग्स ऑफ दिस स्क्रिप्ट, तो आई से हाँ आई एम वेरी एक्साइटेड, आई राइट इट। तो फर्स्ट दे विल सेंड मी एन एनडीए, नॉन डिस्क्लोजर एग्रीमेंट, या कॉन्फिडेंशियलिटी का कुछ एक एग्रीमेंट भेजेंगे, आप पहले ये साइन करके भेजो कि हम आपको ये भेज रहे, किसी डिस्कस नहीं करोगे। तो इफ दे कैन डू देन व्हाई कांट वी। तो आई थिंक इस चीज को हमें एक आदत बना लेना चाहिए सबको, दिस इज वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग। हाँ, सबसे पहले और दूसरी चीज क्रिएटिव प्रोसेस के लिए मैं बोलना चाहूंगा कि अच्छे से लिखे और अपनी स्टोरी को, क्योंकि अभी वो टाइम नहीं है जब हम सोचे कि नहीं इसको थिएट्रिकल रिलीज मिलेगा नहीं मिलेगा। अभी लाइक यू हैव प्लेटफॉर्म्स, आपने फिल्म बनाई तो आप कहीं पे भी ये कर सकते हैं, यू कैन मेक फिल्म इन वेरी लेस बजट, लाइक एक लैपटॉप के बजट में भी आप फिल्म बना सकते हैं। आप अच्छे आईफोन पे शूट कर सकते हैं, बहुत अच्छी अच्छी फिल्म आईफोन पे शूट हुई है। एंड इफ योर स्टोरी टेलिंग इज वेरी गुड देन यू हैव प्लेटफॉर्म, देन आपको लोग ढूंढ लेंगे, डोंट वरी अबाउट दैट। तो आई थिंक फिल्म बनाने के साथ साथ फिल्म एग्जिबिट कहाँ करनी, कैसे करनी, इस चीज को लेके भी थोड़ा कॉशियस रहे, थोड़ा अलर्ट रहे और उसको करें, क्योंकि बहुत सारे लोग, बहुत सारे प्लेटफॉर्म ऐसे ही पॉपुलर हुए कि लोगों ने उन्हें ढूंढ लिया और ओवरनाइट उनको व्यूवरशिप मिल गई, उनको प्लेटफॉर्म्स मिल गए। तो सिर्फ ये दिमाग में ना रखें कि यार एक बड़ा स्टूडियो मेरे को लॉन्च करेगा या करेगा। अगर आप आप खुद करेंगे, अपनी लड़ाई लड़ेंगे तो आसान हो जाएगी लड़ाई लड़नी, क्योंकि आपको पता है कि कैसे लड़ना है, कैसे दुश्मन को घेरना है. Too much of Hindi, but sorry.
Thank you, sir. That is really some great piece of advice. So now continuing the same, I would like to know from Sanjeeth sir, what are your suggestions on improving the current situation of IP statutes and violations?
See, one of the things, one of the primary things that there's a lot of challenges in the entertainment industry currently. You know, there was some amendments to the Copyright Act in 2012. You know, where the rights of lyricists and composers have become quite important in terms of their ability to collect royalties, right? Royalties based on the works that they create. Those works, so lyrics and composition, which thereafter are used in sound recordings, right? In music, which might go into a film, right? So the law essentially says that the ability to be able to collect an equal share, right, of the money that is made because their composition and their lyrics have been included in songs which go into a film. So for which the producer pays them a certain amount initially when they make it for them. And the producer owns the copyright in the work that a lyricist or composer has given them. However, the lyricist and composer retain their right to be able to collect royalties even if they don't own the work, right? Meaning they've given the work to the producer, but they still retain the right to get royalties whenever the producer is making money from that film other than theaters, right? So as you know, other than theaters, digital is very big, TV is very big, right? I mean, and even bits and pieces of that film, like the music or say certain clips are licensed. There is a big licensing business and such things. And then, right, that film can be made into several other works, right? I'm sorry, several other languages also, right? So if you make a film in Hindi, someone else can take the right from you to make it in Tamil, or they can make it in Bengali or whichever, right? And those are rights that you as a producer have. So whenever that film is used by somebody else, the lyricist and composer still have the right to be able to collect royalties, right, from the money that the producer is making. This has been a big challenge, right? This came out in 2012 in the Copyright Amendment. However, there's a lot of back and forth happening in the industry. You know, there's a copyright society which pushes for the rights of lyricists and composers, IPRS, right? So they've been very active in terms of asking for these royalties on behalf of their members. So there's several other copyright societies that are also coming up. Performers are also asking for such ability, right? Now there's no such copyright society for writers. So maybe this is something Manish can think about in the future. Maybe Manish push for one society for writers, you know, which will ask for such. So even if you write a story and you give it to a producer and you don't own it anymore, but you still have the ability to collect royalties if they use your, you know, once that film, which is based on your story, is used in multiple places, you can continue collecting royalties, right? This is what the lyricists and composers have been able to do. But for writers, this is not such a case right now, unless you're a very big writer and you can negotiate this into a contract, right? Which says that I will write for you, you can own it. However, whenever you make money from the film that's made on my story, you have to continue giving me some share, right? So, you know, big writers are able to command such an ask. However, you know, there's so many struggling writers who are new to the industry, you know, and for very small money, they might have to sign over their story to a filmmaker, and thereafter they don't get anything from it, right? So, Copyright Act needs to be strengthened, you know, where rights of many people, not just lyricists and composers, but any type of work that's been created by any kind of a creator, including writers like Manish, right? That writing ability, that work that they create, I think there needs to be a lot of clarification in terms of their ability to be able to make, right, monetary benefits from it on a long-term basis, in line with, say, lyricists and composers. That and I think that's in the works. We'll see a lot of precedents coming through courts in the near future, where certain cases have been filed, where based on the decisions that come out by courts, we'll have a little more clarity as to which direction our industry will head in, right? Other than that, due to now, many years ago, there was only two options for putting your film out, right? Your story goes into a film, and that film goes out into theaters. Once it's done in theaters, it goes into TV, right? We can watch it at home. However, that has changed dynamically, over the last 10 to 15 years, especially because of internet, right? Now, our consumption habits itself, in terms of how we consume content, has drastically changed. First came 4G to India, 4G technology, because of which now we can stream things on your phone. Sudden, there are a good number of films that don't even go into theater. They automatically come on mobile applications, right? They come on the Netflix, they come on Amazon Prime, they come on Hotstar and such, where we can watch it whenever and wherever we want to watch it, as long as we have data, right? Now, this is going to change even further, possibly 5G technology in India. That is going to make film streaming instantaneous, right? It's going to be, you press the button, you press play, it's going to be streaming live at live speed, meaning, you don't need to download the film. Some instances, if your data is not fast, like in 4G, we download the film and we watch it later. But that's not going to be the case with 5G. It's going to be so fast. So the consumption habits in India are going to drastically change. And 5G is going to be rolled out because of people like Jio, right? 5G is going to be rolled out across India. It isn't just a major urban metropolitan, tier 1 cities. It's going to be available to tier 2, tier 3, everywhere across India. You're going to have high speed. So I think there's going to be a bit of time that we'll have to spend on things like the IT Act. IT Act is very significant in terms of regulating content to a great degree, and how content is consumed and how content is made available and do with it, right? So there's a lot of intermediary liabilities and such things that we look at. How do the Netflixes of the world, how do the YouTubes of the world, what can they do with it? How can they show to people? How can people access it? Privacy rights. All of these aspects are going to become very important. I see that theaters are not going to be less important. I think post-corona and post the lockdown, with the situation improving, people are going to return to theaters once again, right? There's no change in terms of movie viewing. People still prefer to a great degree to see it in theaters. So I think that will be there. However, our ability to consume it from mobile applications is going to only increase. So we're going to have to look at acts like the IT Act, e-commerce acts, also e-commerce laws and regulations are also becoming very important, because they do come under the purview of e-commerce, right? Because you are consuming content which is available for which online, for which you have to pay, right? And someone is selling it over there. So e-commerce regulations and such things are also something that is going to be relevant to the film industry, writing industry. So we're going to be looking at these as well. So in a nutshell, quickly, right? Copyright law obviously is the most important aspect. Copyright Act is the most important aspect. The one law that applies to writings and films and music and such things. But besides that, because of the consumption of these works, we have to look at the Act, we have to look at e-commerce regulations, we have to look at privacy, data privacy, and such regulations. In the coming years, these will be very significant for us.
Thank you for your suggestion, sir. Any quick advice you would like to give to all the aspiring lawyers who are wanting to pursue intellectual property law professionally in the future?
Sure. Briefly, I can say, and I'll make this particular to the entertainment industry, as we're talking about entertainment. One thing that most aspiring lawyers don't realize is that it's about the business. It's about understanding the business that Manish is in, right? It's about understanding the work that someone like Manish does. We tend to only get the perspective of statutes, right? How to interpret a statute or how to read case law, right? We're saying, okay, and the perspective we get, and we always think that it's dispute related. That's what lawyers do. Whenever there's a dispute, that's when lawyers become involved. That's hardly the case, right? And I mentioned before that disputes are probably less than 5% of the work that someone like us as intellectual property professionals, particularly entertainment lawyers that we do. Most of the work that we do is working with people like Manish, where we can be a sounding board for Manish. Manish says, I'm working on such a story, right? And I'm going to, base this story on some well-known personality, right? So what am I permitted to do? Can I present it in this manner? Will I get into any problems if I don't take permission from that person or from their family, right? Can I, write a story on this? Can I sell it to, say, a producer? Will the producer be in trouble because I've written this? So all of this due diligence, right, in terms of the industry that Manish is in, this is where we do a lot of our work. Thereafter, from doing the necessary due diligence, thereafter we get into the deals that Manish wants to do, right? Manish wants to work with a producer who's made an offer to him. And so what kind of writer-director deal, right? Or it's just an acquisition of his story, right? Manish is handing over the story to a to a producer, and Manish is not going to do anything with it. Or Manish is going to continue consulting with them. Or Manish has the ability to get royalties, even if he doesn't own the story, but a film is made on his story, he's going to continue getting royalties once the film is monetized, right? Is it limited to monetization in theater, or should it be digital as well? Should it be TV as well? Should it be satellite, right? Should stage shows be made from it? Should songs be uploaded on places like Ghana and Savan, right? So all of these aspects in terms of the business that the entertainment industry is, we need to have, as lawyers, we need to understand the business first. Only then will we be successful in terms of advising our clients, right? And protecting their interests to the best of our abilities, right? So that is what I'd like aspiring lawyers to understand, that disputes, right, where you're in court, that is probably a very small % of the work that we do. It almost never happens, right? It almost never happens. It's a very small segment of it. When you have no other option, you pursue that avenue. Otherwise, your work is in advisory, right? It's in putting your client in the best position to have a win-win business transaction that they can have, where they're successful in terms of protecting their work and monetizing their work.
Thank you, sir. Those are really great advices. So at the end, it was really a privilege to have you both with us, and indeed an amazing experience for me to, for being able to interview such eminent personalities who have achieved so much in their fields. And I'm definitely sure that when all the aspiring writers and lawyers will see this, they will also get to gain a lot of knowledge from both of you. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for having us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Have a nice day.